attention, please. Does anybody know how to turn the volume up? Somebody here knows how to? That's right.
Please, you may know this mixer.
How's that? Is that better? Okay. I'm getting some feedback there a little bit. Just go ahead and leave it go. How's that? Better? Okay. For anybody sitting in the back, there are several chairs if you want to pull one up and have a seat. I think we'll have enough room for everybody. First of all, I want to say Happy New Year to everyone. This is a wonderful turnout. I want to thank everyone for attending to this legislative roundtable that I've been planning for some time. Like I said, thank you for attending. And I want to thank a few special people who have helped pull this thing together. Tara Marshall, of course. Tara, would you please stand up? Audra Garrett, City Clerk. Victor Gutierrez. Andrew Wallace. And we cannot forget our lobbyist, Mrs. Debbie Wagner. She's sitting back over here. I want to thank TSJC for hosting the event today. And I really want to extend something to someone who, the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Ms. Crisanta Duran. Would you please stand up and say hi? State Senator, the Honorable Larry Crowder. State Representative, the Honorable Ms. Kimmy Lewis. Representing some of the national legislators, Dwight Gardner could not be here because he's been under the weather. Representing Senator Gardner, Ms. Kathy Garcia. Representing Congressman Buck's office, that is
Andy Hall.
Andy Hall?
Yes.
Andy Hall. And of course, Trinidad lobbyist Debbie Wagner. Also in attendance, we have City Council Mr. Anthony Matei, Mr. Carlos Lopez, Ms. Pat Fletcher. Ms. Miles could not be with us because she is out of town. Mr. Joe Bonotto. And Ms. Liz Torres could not be with us today. We have Councilwoman Councilwoman-elect Ms. Karen Grego. Councilman-elect Mr. Rusty Goodall. City Manager Mr. Greg Sund. And of course, our City Clerk, Ms. Audra Garrett. County Commissioners, Mr. McLeod, Mr. Luis Lopez, Mr. Dean Moulter, and County Administrator, Ms. Pete Frazier. You know, this roundtable is being recorded live via YouTube on Trinidad Times TV 71 by Mr. Tom Murphy. And we're also having something that I'm going to invite Mr. Andrew Wallace to come up because he's doing something with Google. And so please.
For anybody who's watching online or watching after the fact, we will have a Google form which will allow you to fill out and ask a question to any of the representatives or the members of our county commissioners. Any questions you have. So if you go onto the Trinidad website, both of the Trinidad websites and both of the Trinidad Facebook pages, that link will be online there, and you can feel free to fill out those forms, and those forms will be directed to these members up here. Thank you.
You know, only a young person can understand all this. I surely can't. over my head. You know, this roundtable is something that's been on my mind for several months now. You know, my original idea was to bring together the city council, the county commissioners, you know, the providers in Trinidad, some of the local business owners, CEOs of the community. A couple of weeks ago, Tara Marshall and I were traveling and started talking about how this would all come together. And she said, why don't we invite some of our state legislators? So we put together a plan, and of course we got our state legislators to join with us, and really, really appreciate your time coming down with us. So give a big hand to our legislators for attending. This roundtable will be conducted in 2 hours. So time is very short, so please keep your minutes that we're going to be talking about in a minute to a minimum. The first hour will be our industry representatives, which are local people here in Trinidad. The second hour will be our state, then our national, county, and city representatives in this order. We have 18 representatives from industry representatives from Trinidad. Each industry representative will have 3 minutes to present to the panel any issues that you wish to bring forward. The city, county, state, national will have 5 minutes each. We will begin with the first person on the list that's on the table so pay attention to the list that you have in front of you, and we follow in that order. Victor Gutierrez is going to be our timekeeper, and when he comes close to within 30 seconds of your 3 minutes, he'll probably raise a little red flag or something, red paper, letting you know that your time is getting real short. When you get to the podium, please state your name and what industry or organization that you're representing. Industry participants, there's a form that's going to be on the table, and we'd like for you to fill out to let us know what you think of at the end of the forum. The general public there's forms for you to fill out for any questions that you might have. Please give them to Ms. Garrett at the end of the meeting, and these questions will be forwarded to whoever the question is posed to, and they will hopefully get back to you in the next few days or a couple of weeks at least. So at this point, I'd like to begin with Dr. Simone. Dr. Simone from TSJC, would you please come forward and begin? And after Dr. Simone, please follow in sequence of who's on the list on the table, please.
Thank you, Mayor Rico. I'd like to welcome everybody to Trinidad State Junior College. We're really excited to be hosting this with Mr. Mayor, and we're very pleased to have all of our honored guests here with us today. Of course, Trinidad State Junior College was established in 1925. We were the first 2-year institution in the state of Colorado. And I always remind people to please call us the first, don't call us the oldest, because it feels different when they call you the oldest. About a third of our enrollment comes from concurrent enrollment, and I wanted our honored guests here today to know that. Concurrent enrollment is extremely important to Trinidad State Junior College. We serve 22 school districts in our 8-county region, and those 22 school districts all have us do things just a little bit differently, which is okay with us, but it does make it a challenge for us. Concurrent enrollment's been a topic of legislative conversation for the past few years. And I would just like to ask if there are bills coming forward related to concurrent enrollment that please include the colleges in those conversations, because it does impact us so tremendously. And concurrent enrollment is extremely important for our state. So I did want to make sure that I mentioned that today. Our system also has decided to seek authorization for a Bachelor of Science in Nursing program this year. So that'll be a conversation also happening at the legislature at the state level. We feel this is fairly important because we have 2-year nursing programs at our colleges, and we turn out a lot of nurses. Those nurses go on to earn their bachelor's degrees, and a lot of times they're not able to go to the 4-year institutions to do that. They're trying to find something local while they're working at our hospitals and other places. And so we want to be able to help those students finish that bachelor's degree locally so that they're not going online and out of state with those online very expensive programs. So that's another topic that I wanted to bring forward. And as you heard me say, we were the first community college in the state. Well, there's one time when I'll talk about us being the oldest, and that's when I talk about our facilities. Because our facilities are fairly old. They do need constant maintenance. We're very grateful for the Senate Bill 267 last year that helped us with some of our controlled maintenance costs. But we are bringing forward one issue for the legislature to consider, and that's a remodel of our Freudenthal Library here. That is a project that would be just under $2 million, and it would help us locally with our economy as we progress in that library. So I want to bring that one forward too. We are also looking for ways to expand our footprint. We serve 8 counties here in southern Colorado. 6 of them are in the San Luis Valley. And we have a Valley campus that was established in 1994. We would like to expand our training outside of the Alamosa area into the rest of the San Luis Valley in Rio Grande County. And we found a partner that's going to work with us to do that. And I want to make sure that people understand that as we do that, we are strengthening our entire institution. So any growth that we have buoys the whole institution up. And we are serving here in southern Colorado. We've been here since 1925. We plan on being here at least 100 more years. And I'm very, very pleased and proud to be serving as president of Trinidad State Junior College. So is that what you had in mind, Mr. Mayor?
That's exactly what we had in mind.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone who's responsible for putting this event together. Thank you very much. My name is Paul Montera, and I actually think I can represent 3 organizations while I'm here. First of all, I would ask all of us here, what incentives would the city and county like to provide if we could bring a company here that would have over a $15 million payroll in this county? Well, you don't have to attract us. We're already here. We're retired PERA. And as that, we have 506 retirees in the Los Animas County who received in 2016 $15,804,013 in retirement benefits. And what we would ask is that we face the challenge and always need your help to be sure that legislation, sometimes led by Walter Stapleton, who would like to diminish some of that economic benefit to our county. So we ask that we stand firm and you help us with that so that we don't have any reductions in that economic benefit, both to our retirees as well as our county. Second, I'm a member of the local Knights of Columbus, and we're a charitable organization, and we ask for your support in that charitable fundraising so we can continue to provide that charity to various entities within our community. And finally, I am the president of the Trinidad School District No. 1 Board of Education. And to go along with our president of the college, we are the first district in the state of Colorado. That's our designation, Trinidad School District No. 1. We are the first designated school district in this state. And we are funded, as you may know, by local property taxes as well as state funding. And it kind of works like this. There's the Colorado School Finance Act, and at the beginning of the legislative year, they put together that financial application of that financial act, and we figure out what our per pupil funding is going to be. They multiply that by our average or our enrollment this year, whichever is best, and come up with a total dollar amount. That total dollar amount is then put into our funding for our school, but the state legislature has to balance the budget. By law, they have to have a balanced budget, so they apply a negative factor to that. And in the previous 8 years, our school district has lost over $8 million in funding due to the negative factor in our budget. So these are the challenges we face in trying to, as you said earlier, keep our buildings up, and also provide adequate pay for our staff. And we will be seeking a BEST grant, and you're well aware of the BEST grant process. We'll be seeking a BEST grant here very soon, and we will be asking for the help of our taxpayers to support our part of that funding. The funding that we seek, we've got to match about 40%. So we'll be looking for help from all of you, either with the mill levy override or a bond issue, so we can improve our facilities for our children. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Walt Bolden. I'm the Executive Director of the South Central Council of Governments. We are a quasi-governmental 501c3 nonprofit, and I point that out because most of what we do actually is nonprofit work. COG employs over 230 people in the two-county area, so we're one of the larger employers. Almost 80% of our funding comes from state and federal sources. So we're talking anywhere from Medicaid, community block grants, state funds. In both Huerfano and Los Animas counties, we provide transit services on a demand response public transportation. We also provide care services in both Huerfano and Los Animas County, which would be considered non-medical care services. This allows patients or clients to stay in their home and stay independent rather than moving into a medical supported facility. We also provide the services of the Area Agency on Aging, and with that program we provide 5 hot meals each week, both in Walsenburg and Trinidad, as well as 2 hot meals in Segundo and Aguilar. We also provide the homebound meals, which would be the equivalent of Meals on Wheels in the 2 counties. AAA also provides transportation assistance, short-term home care assistance, and medical aid assistance. We also run the housing program for the 2 counties. We partner with the Department of Human Services to provide home modifications for clients based on medical need, and then we provide housing rehabilitation based on 2 block grants. We administer the Colorado's Enterprise Zone. We also provide the administration for the South Central Transportation Program. We have an early learning center where we provide licensed services for children ages 1 through 10. When I was asked to talk about some of the barriers we face, I guess, are a little bit different than for-profit organizations in that we are funded by those entities, who you represent, the state and the federal government. Our basic problems are increasing need. We've got waiting lists on every single one of our programs, decreased funding, and increased expenses. One of the big ones for us, and I think for many of the small organizations in the area, is the minimum wage increase. And I will say we absolutely support people making better wages. Our problem is because we are funded by the state government, the federal government, the wages are making it very difficult to provide, increased minimum wages making it very difficult to provide the services that we do, because we provide services to low-income individuals. We also employ an awful lot of low-income individuals. And what happens is the minimum wage is going up 90 cents a year. We're receiving 50 cents a year in increased rates from the state. And then we have the time lag on top of that. The minimum wage goes into effect on January 1. We received notification on July 1st that we had received the 50 cents. But then by the time it went through federal approval from the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid, we were not announced or allocated that until October. And we are not an organization that gets retroactive reimbursement. Healthcare is a major issue for us as a small employer. It's continuing to go up every year, and every year we wonder whether or not we're going to be able to continue to offer it to our employees. House Bill 1291 ended in this last year. That was a major funder for our early learning centers, 1 and 2 year old programs. That program will probably end this year if we do not find funding. We also have trouble finding a workforce.
Mr. Bolton, would you please wrap up because we got the next speaker?
Okay. One of the things I would point out that's a little different is our workforce. A lot of our workers majority are part-time, and a lot of them are on Medicaid themselves, trying to work themselves off Medicaid. What we run into is with Medicaid's cap on hours and the increase for minimum wage, as their wages go up, they actually cut their hours. They're able to work with us because they're afraid to lose their health care. And I think that's something we need to think in terms about very seriously as we try to help people work off of Medicaid, what kind of a box that puts them in. Thank you.
Would ask that you find a way to beef up safety and security in a town like Trinidad and many of the others. The tipping point is businesses are having more burglary, more theft, vandalism, and a lot of this is people who are either trying to do drug habit support or just are not really people who would be the kind of people you want in the town. And I don't know how to say that properly, and I apologize. But we have a community center that has people with doing drug habits that are hanging around community centers. And that's really hard for families that have kids to take their kids to a community center. So I would ask somehow that not only do we need police support and more patrol, but we also need a state presence in some of this to handle some of the problem. One of the things that was just passed was Narcan for people who say they have an addiction and then can come in, get Narcan, hand it to them, turn around it and sell it and support their drug habit. And so I see a couple of things that need to at least be considered. Is sometimes when you try to fix something, sometimes you can break it worse in a poor manner. And I just would like to finish with if you ignore reinforcing Trinidad, you set up the entire state to fail. And we really need to make sure we keep a handle on Trinidad, because if we don't, then what's going to happen is the whole state will come apart a chip at a time. Thank you.
Mayor, I brought my phone up, so I'm starting my stopwatch. I'm John Tucker from the hospital. I want to start out by thanking Speaker Duran, Senator Crowder, and Representative Lewis and their help in the last legislative session getting the hospital provider fee solidified, enormous benefit to hospitals in the state, especially small rural ones like us. But the issue I wanted to talk about today is really around the Affordable Care Act, and I know you're all as tired of hearing about this as I am, so this is mainly for Amanda and Kathy since it's a federal issue. But I wanted to just recap, if I can, in 2.5 minutes, what this Affordable Care Act is and what it means to small rural hospitals like ours. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act was signed into law March 23rd, 2010. Everybody probably remembers that day. The most significant expansion of coverage and regulatory overhaul to our healthcare system since Medicare and Medicaid were passed in 1965. The law had two goals, and so I'm going to recap both of those quickly. The first was to reform the health insurance industry, and the second was to expand coverage to most Americans. They didn't ever think it would cover all Americans, but they wanted to cover most Americans. So on the health insurance reform leg of that, that's where we hear about 10 essential health benefits, guaranteed issue, no lifetime limits, preventive care covered without a copay, minimum loss ratios for insurers, so insurers had to spend their premium dollars on health care. Dependents can remain on parents' plans until age 26, so all that around health insurance. And you can see that most of those things needed to happen, but they also increased costs significantly. The second piece, and the most controversial, was the coverage expansion. The goal, again, was expanding coverage to most Americans. There were 44 million Americans without health insurance coverage in early 2010. That was going to happen one of three ways. State Medicaid expansion, and thankfully our state did. I want to thank Senator Crowder for breaking with his party. He was the only senator in the state, Republican senator in the state to vote to end Medicaid, so we appreciate him. The second was the employer mandate, not a huge impact, and then also the individual mandate. Everybody remembers when that was challenged by the Supreme Court. But that was where individuals can go on to healthcare exchanges, kind of think of that as like a Expedia for healthcare, and go by highly subsidized premiums up to 400% of the federal poverty limits. The Medicaid expansion component was challenged by the Supreme Court, and so it wasn't, the Supreme Court essentially said that the federal government couldn't require states to expand Medicaid. Thankfully our state did, but many didn't. And because many didn't, we're starting to see lots of small rural hospitals close across the country, primarily in non-expansion states in the South and Southeast, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Florida. So this is very concerning to us. I don't have time to get through the rest of my slides, but just ask that, and we have been communicating with Congressman Buck and Senator Gardner about this issue. We'd just like to continue to advocate for protection of the Affordable Care Act and especially Medicaid expansion in the state. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felix Lopez, and I'm going to do what John did. Thank you so much for being here with us. Trinidad and some days is the forgotten community. It almost feels like. Kimmy, good to see you. One of the things that we have on the healthcare, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Mount Carmel, and a lot of the statistics that we hear about, we read about, I just don't want it to be any more statistics. Let me share with you a couple of numbers. I had a PowerPoint presentation. If you want to see it, I'll be more than glad to pass it on because it's so imperative and so important. With data collected from Los Animas County by Ms. Arlene Lopez, the Health Department, let me share with you these two things that are so imperative and impressive that we must address soon. The mayor and I have had this conversation since I came back to Trinidad, and this is going back to the court system. Marty and Judge Gerbrack also have had conversations. The opioid epidemic in Los Animas County, in southern Colorado. We recently applied for a grant. It's substantially a large grant, and we think we're going to be awarded the grant through the Colorado Health Foundation. And if that happens, in the conversations that we have had as a community, beginning with you, Mayor, is that we need to address this once and for all, and at least to begin to chip away at this problem that is becoming probably a leading epidemic anywhere USA. So thank you for agreeing that this is a tremendous challenge that we have in our hands. We think that the grant is going to be approved, and as we're merging through Mount Carmel, we're going to have a merger with Salud Family Health Centers out of Denver. They have the potential to increase and increment the services that we have here in Trinidad through Mount Carmel, not only primary care, but then the next thing to the opioid epidemic is behavioral. We have to have more access to behavioral health. And so that is what Salud hopefully is going to be bringing to Trinidad. And we have this whole perspective as we speak. They're starting today. The partnership began with Salud in Mount Carmel. So we're ready to go on. And I'd love to have you stop by my office and give us some feedback. What are some of the services? We're going to be also providing the services, ambulatory pediatric dentistry to a lot of the kids that don't have dental access here in Los Animas County. We're looking at perhaps working with convenient care. In many conversations John and I have had, John Tucker, we are partnering as a community to come together. So let me close with this, because 3 minutes is really not enough to talk about this whole thing, but I want you to know one thing, that let's look at the mirror of history and let's stop doing what we have done before with no results. Today, Mayor, I think you did this conversation. This is so amazing. I want us to go back. And let me challenge all of us, especially those working in the county and the city, is the communication there has to be to and fro on a daily basis. The county and the city have to be on the same page. Unless we do that, we're going to continue to come back to this place and talk to the representatives at the state level. Let me tell you, they're busy enough. But that communication has to begin right here, right now. And let's not collect a 3-ring binder that's going to be sitting in somebody's shelf, and we dust it off every 3 years and we say, you know, we did that 3 years ago. Oh yeah, we did it 3 years ago. What did you do about it? So thank you so much. I welcome you to Mount Carmel. Come and talk to us, because the services that we provide are imperative not only to this community, but to the entire health and wellness of Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm Joey DeGarbo with International Bank. And I guess I go back 17 years when we got an opportunity to build a bank in this town, thinking, hey, let's go forward and see what we can do to make it better. Well, the good news is we have the oil and gas industry here, and it really got us off to a really good start. Of course, the big thing again is back to regulation in oil and gas. How do we get some of that down a little bit? So like we got Timber Creek coming in here again to get them where they could go out and drill and not have any issues like we've seen along the way. The other thing for us also is, as a bank, we do take marijuana deposits, and some banks don't, and the reason they don't is that they claim that it's against the law. Well, it may be federally against the law, but the point is everybody's taking them because you've got a plumber or an electrician or an engineer that actually is putting deposits in the bank. So how do we make it so it's regulatorily available so every bank feels comfortable without thinking they're getting in trouble? The national regulators, the FDIC, does not actually say it's against the law. You just have to report it differently. So we need to make sure that happens for all banks, because we need to keep track of that money for everybody. And it's very important, because the next step is, if we're going to keep doing this marijuana, all that money's in our state and in our community, we've got to be able to lend some money to some of these people so that they become good citizens, which they are, but to a better level where they're buying houses and the money's just not cash to deal with. We want them to go out and use their money in the communities. That's really important to all of us that we make that happen. The last thing I want to say is, everybody made a resolution this year. So let's take the RE off of it and let's call it a solution and create solutions for all of us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angie Hill, and I'm with JM Tire, and I represent, sorry, I have a cold, so I'm congested, but I represent our automotive industry in our community. I'm also on the advisory board at the college for automotive, and I was sitting down this meeting to think about, because I'm a doer, I'm not one to sit in a meeting and try to put something together, because I'm the one who's going to go out and just go do it. What we're going to just recently, and this is level, our tire disposal and chemical disposals and stuff at our landfill isn't always going to be able to handle that. But we are so far away from entities that the cost to send a tire north is very expensive, along with filters and antifreeze and chemicals that we use on a daily basis. And I'm sure the hospital has the same thing, but they have some entities that have to come down. And those are costs that we have to put in our bottom line, and our bottom line goes up, and then we can't always fix people's cars. In our industry, in our area, we are 10 to 15 years behind. Denver and areas like that, their kids are getting educated on electrical cars. Our kids are not in our college. We're trying to get them more money, as everybody wants more money to make more things, to make more, so that our kids can be educated to be able to work on these vehicles. Something that I see that our city might need is a charging station for electrical cars that are coming into our industry. That is going to be huge in the next 8 to 10 years. Not only for us as a challenge to have techs to be able to work on them, but to have a place where they can actually plug in. We do have a Tesla station here, but a GM, a Ford, nobody can plug into them but Teslas. So we don't have that here, and we're kind of a midway between Denver and Albuquerque, and that's something we're probably going to have to try to provide for them. our industry just had a huge insurance increase. I talked to several places in town, and they are having increases, and this is because of regulations at our state and federal level. We have increases of anywhere from 30 to 45%, and it's based on sorry, this is so hard. The age group of what our technicians are coming. We have a age group that is, we've missed a generation for technicians. We have a generation before mine that doesn't end up getting, that wasn't educated to be technicians. We now have 19 to 21-year-olds that are in our industry, but I can't insure them. And because of our federal and state regulations, I can't insure someone to work on your car. So these are problems that I've run into that are in our industry, in our little town. There's lots of others, but I know it's short of time. 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
I also got a little bit of a cold, so I apologize. Hello, my name is Joey Salazar. I'm one of the owners of Brick Sports Bar and Grill. Cheers. If you guys haven't been to my bar, come check it out. Some of the things that we run into is we have 28 employees on staff. A 90-cent increase in minimum wage is tough on a small restaurant. You know, it goes from changing days open, raising menu prices. We have all the time tourists come in and they're like, how could you guys pay $12.50 for a burger? We can get $9 at McDonald's. I'm like, $9 at McDonald's, that's quite a bit too. So the problem that we have is, you know, our beer price is going to go up a little bit, our menu price is going to go up, and then our staff's going to have to change a little bit in order to make sure we can stay open. I was reading an article this morning where it said that 14% of restaurants in Colorado are going to go under, which that's pretty scary because if everybody knows, a restaurant business is the worst, it's the most business that goes under, that closes every year. That's the hardest business. I do have fun in the restaurant business, but it is tough. Some of the things that I think that we could do as a community is we need to figure out how to pull all these thousands of cars that pass through the highway every single day and keep them in our community for more than 20 minutes. You know, they come, they get gas, they get marijuana, and then they're gone. How do we keep them in town a little bit longer? Can we create like zip lines? Can we create soccer tournaments where, you know, groups of people are coming to our town and staying here for the weekend? You know, we need to create more of tourist attractions, and more businesses will, you know, be more successful because you're gonna have more people. The problem that we run into is there's only so many people that come out and eat every single weekend. And I'm all for new business, new restaurants, everything. I support them. I was eating at Tequila's last night with my family. But we have to have multiple businesses open, and we got to have enough people in our community to fill these businesses. And right now, I was looking at some of the population. Our population's not growing up in Trinidad. It's staying even. So as much marijuana and stuff that's coming into this town, our population isn't growing. And we got to create more jobs. We got to create more things for people in Trinidad where people want to come here and live. And people that are in this room are business owners. So we got to get more. Almost? All right. Last thing I got is I've created a group with a bunch of people in Trinidad. Some of the police force were involved in it. We have a minor backpack program. We feed 15 kids every Thursday through Monday full of food. Backpack goes home full of food. They come back Monday, we fill it up. Thursday, they get it again Friday. We fed 56 people for Thanksgiving, families that really needed the support. Some of the people, the police department that dropped some of this food off for them, no power in the house, they didn't have nothing. So our community is not just business owners and other people. It takes the whole community to help some of these families, and we're trying to get involved as much as possible, but it's going to take all of us, you know, to help our population, you know, as far as the drugs and the homeless and all that. It takes the whole community to help. So if you guys want to be part of that, or it's called Minor Backpack Program, you can drop food off at the Police department, you can drop it off at Brick Sports Bar and Grill. I think Lee's Barbecue, you can drop it off as well. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Kim Gonzalez. I'm the Public Health Director for Los Animas-Huerfano County's District Health Department. And today I'm just going to talk about the efforts that Public Health is working on to modernize and ensure Colorado public health system is efficient and effective and funded from years to come. Back in 2008, Governor Bill Ritter signed a Public Health Reauthorization Act that required identified board agencies and public health officials to collaboratively develop state and local public health plans to set priorities for the public health system in Colorado. The primary purpose of the act is to ensure that core public health services are available to every person in Colorado with consistent standard of quality. An effective public health system reduces healthcare costs by preventing disease and injury, promoting healthy behavior, and reduces the incidence of chronic diseases and conditions. Each community in Colorado should provide high-quality public health services regardless of their location. Under the new law, each county must establish or be part of the local public health agency organized under the local Board of Health with the public health director and other staff necessary to provide these public health services. In addition to the state of Colorado and each local public health agency, we must have had a comprehensive public health plan that was due by December of 2009. That plan outlined how quality public health services will be provided in each local public health agency. To date, we have currently 53 public health agencies within 64 counties in Colorado, with a variety of structures that exist in all of these local entities. Population-wise, San Juan County is your smallest public health agency with 704 in population. The largest is Tri-County with 1.4 million. By land, the smallest is Broomfield, which is only 32 square miles, and your largest public health agency by land is Los Animas-Huerfano County's District Health Department by 10,000 square miles. 9 LPHAs serve 85% of the population, and the remaining 15% of that population is served by 44 local health departments. Small agencies often have 1 to 5 staff that wear many hats in order to offer them full-time positions and health insurance. In short, we are coming up on the 10th anniversary of this Public Health Act. While we have a lot to celebrate in terms of the work that's been done, the good time to reflect on challenges that lie ahead in public health. As Colorado's population continues to grow, so does the public health emergency issues such as the opioid epidemic, H1N1 issues related to air quality, water quality, and quality to the collective ability to provide services in these key areas. Despite this growth, public health services have not been kept up in demand, which in turn places a strain on systems and missed opportunities to show improvements in health and environmental outcomes. With that, we ask that any funding related topics at the legislative level that come forth that we look at and work towards to help public health succeed in the future.
Just take this down a notch. I'm Lisa Camarillo. I represent Phil Long Toyota as a general manager. I also own a small business here in Trinidad called Hot Yoga on Main. And I'm here today to talk about building my own economic development and wanting that support from this community and seeing it in a lot of many areas. One of the problems that come up for us is hiring. Hiring, like was brought up in other people prior to me, was hiring people that are educated and qualified for the positions to be able to bring them in. Well, once we hire these people and we find them in usually other states or towns, bringing them in and providing things like housing and excellent education and more than 2 restaurants opened that day. And I'm not being sarcastic, this is a real problem. And being able to say, well, what do you do on this day? Well, we don't, it's kind of like this little internal thing, you don't want to tell anybody, well, there's nothing open on that day. And then the wife of the spouse or the husband or whatever that I've hired brings up a very clear point. Well, what do you mean there's nothing open? Or what do you mean there's only 30 kids in that one private school? Or what do you mean these kids are not meeting statewide testing requirements? And those are just small little things that I deal with, and through my tap dancing salesmanship, I work my way around it in different ways. And one of the biggest issues that I have is once I get them here is keeping them here. And Cal Sandbeck, I really appreciated you saying this, because one of the things that has kind of occurred for myself was I've been here almost 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in March, which is just amazing to me that I've been here that long. It just went by so fast. But 5 years ago, you could have left your door, you could have left your car open with, gold bricks in the seat and the doors wide open and the keys in it, and come back and all things were intact. Okay? It's not that way. And I appreciate my entire police force over here. I appreciate them very much, because I unfortunately have to call them a lot. And with Phil Long Toyota, we have a beautiful building. We've spent lots of money and moved in there, and we had huge support from this community. And I really appreciate the support that we've had. But on New Year's Eve, we had 23 cars vandalized. I have $70,000 of repair. And and what do you say? It just is what it is. We also have a huge homeless community that lives in the Riverwalk underneath the bridge just right next to us. And there's just many, many things that the support of this, the support of amping up and putting those funds and helping, because they can't be everywhere all the time. And so we need more of them. This is a wonderful community. I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm proud to be a business owner, and I'm proud to run a business for a man that has invested most of his life's earnings into this town. And I just want to see that continue and us have that support. It does take a village to raise a town. It takes us all. And I think as a responsible business owner and human and woman and mother and grandmother, your children are my responsibility just like mine are yours. And it takes all of us to look out for that and to stop the war on drugs and the theft and, buy local. And I mean, we can all sit there and say and talk it, but we got to do it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's nice I don't have to adjust the mic, Lisa, thanks. Anyway, I'm Rosemary Shire. I'm the Executive Director of the Trinidad Housing Authority. The authority was established in the early 1960s and is funded and regulated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. I've been with the authority for just over 10 years, and I think that I'm finally beginning to understand HUD. It's really a very, very difficult language to master. In her email, Tara Marshall asked Roundtable participants to list any regulatory agency that has created inefficiency in your business. It's probably best that I don't even get started on regulations. Just know that the number of HUD regulations and reporting requirements are staggering and often very limiting. So instead, I decided to use my 3 minutes to tell you who we are as a local public entity. We provide rental assistance within the city limits of Trinidad to 193 individuals and families in the low-rent public housing program. 50 individuals and families at Corazon Square, which is our 50-unit apartment complex that serves elderly and/or disabled people, and 55 families through our Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program. It's a little over 1,000 people. It's close to 10% of our local population. And we have waiting lists that are sometimes a year long. The need is great for affordable housing. Most of our funding is generated through operating and capital fund grants from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We will receive approximately $418,500 in tenant rent this year. We are also the recipient of a $750,000 grant from the Community Development Block Grant Program for improvements to the Corazon Square apartments. I kind of refer to that grant as the grant from hell, but that's a story for another 3-minute presentation. And now I've lost my place. Oh, and most recently, thanks to Gail Meehan, we have received a $5,000 grant from Denver Public Health and a group called GASP to ease us into a smoke-free environment at all of our properties. Our annualized income, based on the first 7 months of this fiscal year, is $2,128,690. Our annualized expenses, also based on this fiscal year, are $2,258,757,000, a shortfall of approximately $130,000. But I'm not here to ask for more funding. We are financially sound across all program areas. We have a great board of directors. We have a great staff, and generally a great tenant base. I'd like to say all is well. However, along with the local opiate epidemic, some illegal drug trafficking and use, a few cases of fraud, domestic violence, child abuse, extreme poverty, horrible lawns, and a stressed, sometimes traumatized and overworked staff, we're kind of worried about the climate in Washington, with threats of substantial funding cuts, and locally, the shortage of affordable rental stock. We are optimistic, however. Trinidad and Los Animas County are strong. It is more vibrant now than I have ever experienced in the 40-some years that I've lived here. The pessimism that was so predominant just a few years back seems to be dissipating. We as a housing authority and we as a community will weather any craziness that Washington may hand us and any craziness that we may hand ourselves, and hopefully solve some of our social ills through increased economic development, greater commitment to our public schools, and strong interagency partnerships. We will prevail. We're a strong, growing, and compassionate community.
Good afternoon. I'm Arlene Lopez, Director at the Department of Human Services, and my career there has spanned 38 years as a child protection caseworker and supervisor. DHS is a state-regulated, county-administered system, and our successes are measured by the Colorado Department of Human Services. Each program that we administer has a different set of goals that we strive to achieve and maintain. Our successes are measured by timeliness and accuracy of processing applications for eligibility programs, child support collections, timeliness of response to child abuse neglect investigations and adult abuse neglect assessments, monthly contacts, closing cases, as well as the number of children that we have in out-of-home foster care or who re-enter foster care. Barriers to our success stem from the recent Los Animas County financial struggles, in that the county has been unable to meet the statutory requirement of funding our programs adequately. Possible resolutions could be increased mill levy or financial support from marijuana revenues to meet the state required match, so that DHS can continue to drive significant financial impact in the community. A temporary waiver from the state to relieve a county from having the requirement until the county can restore financial health and restore a DHS fund balance. The lack of adequate county funding places limitations on many areas in our department. We have state allocations, but the more we spend for administration and client services, the more the county has to match. This financial situation impacts our ability to help families become self-sustaining. It impacts our ability to recruit and retain quality staff. We continue to lose staff each year to better paying jobs, and our salaries have remained low enough that some of our staff qualify for the same programs that we administer. The cost to train new staff and the time lost in productivity is a blow to the staff in the agency and affects our timeliness measures. Our bachelor level caseworkers required to complete child welfare and adult protection training academies, as well as an additional 40 hours per year of training. Losing staff impacts our ability to keep up with the increasing caseloads in food and Medicaid, child and adult protection referrals, nursing home and home care cases. We serve county residents from birth to the grave. The legalization of marijuana has brought new families from many states across the nation to Trinidad. They come to us and they report that they come here because of the marijuana, but they have no plans for jobs, for family support, or for homes. The use of drugs, as many of you have already mentioned, also impacts many of our program areas. Mental health and substance use disorders in adults impacts our ability to sometimes place these individuals who are at risk. So possibly regional centers to address those hard to place adults might be helpful to us, and possibly involving the state and local judicial system in understanding the cost to counties for caring for children in out-of-home care, and that DHS does not always make the best parent for these kids. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Hello, I'm Scott Zimmerman. I'm with Timber Creek Energy. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, and I appreciate the opportunity to introduce Timber Creek to the Trinidad. We're a newly formed company. We were basically formed in October of this year, or last year, I guess I have to say now. And that as a company, what we're really looking to do is develop coal-bed methane opportunities throughout the Rockies. And so with that, we are backed by Standing Capital, a New York firm, so we have a long-term financial commitment. But like Timber Creek is a new company, we've been involved with Trinidad in the Raton Basin for many, many years. I was with Evergreen Resources. I was with J. Huber Corporation, which we developed wells up in Huerfano County. And so we've been part of this community. Joey knows me. And we're really happy to be here. I got three of my friends and employees here, Vince Dennis Stevens, Ronnie Mack, and Joe Amato, that here. We recently acquired the XTO properties, basically the 1st of October. We offered employment to all of the XTO, and most of them stayed with us. And so we have a good workforce here. And that we've also hired 6 new people, 3 which we brought back to Trinidad that had left because of job opportunities. And so we are excited about the opportunity to work here. And you may have noticed that we've started our workover program, where we're going to work over wells and recompletion program. You may have seen Halliburton trucks running around lately. There's about 30 people that came in from all over the country that are staying in hotels, eating in restaurants. And what we really want to do is look at this is kind of revive the oil and gas industry here in Trinidad. And so we have a really, really aggressive workover program, recompletion program going forward this year and following years. But one thing we always want to do, we want to do it in an environmentally, economically, and properly way to do it. So, resource development was huge here. And over the last 7 years, it's pretty much gone away. So what I would like to say is just some of the hurdles we have is the regulatory burden. We're spending over $1 million in regulatory compliance costs. That's huge. We could put that money to work for more jobs. It looks like permit fees are going to increase also. And there's also changing regulations, especially the department, air, water, other than that. We are going to be hiring new people. We understand that there's availability of skilled workforce. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you so much and appreciate the opportunity to introduce Timber Creek to everybody.
Hello, my name is Jason Sherling, and I'm here representing Freedom Growers, an adult use cannabis cultivation facility here in Trinidad.
Along with my brother, we also own medical cultivation facilities in Colorado, and both recreational and medical dispensaries and extraction services. Our first license was granted in September of 2011, so very early in the cannabis industry here in Colorado. We've been in business 7 years amongst the 6 or 7 licenses we have now. And over the past 6-7 years that we've been in business, we've seen the industry grow tremendously. There's been a lot of changes in the industry, and with those changes come a lot of regulations and new rules and new regulations. One of the things that I would like to ask our delegation and local councilmen to look at for us is giving the cannabis industry in southern Colorado a larger or a more prominent or just more involved role in the rulemaking process. The state comes out with new rules, and as they should, annually, and part of that, most of that rulemaking is all happening in Denver. And the landscape that cannabis businesses operate in is very different in Denver than it is in southern Colorado. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, all cannabis was cultivated indoors, or for the most part. And now you're seeing the predomination of greenhouses and outdoor cultivation. And it, it's hard to, as an outdoor cannabis grower, the rules coming from Denver don't always align with the challenges we face growing outdoor and such. So if there was one thing I could ask for from our delegation is to, maybe involve the southern Colorado communities more in the rulemaking process, and consider the landscape that we operate in Trinidad and in Pueblo as much as the landscape is considered in Denver and up in the more urban areas.
Hello, and thank you for allowing me to talk with you today about Southern Colorado Developmental Disability Services here in Trinidad and Walsenburg, and the legislators for taking your time out to come down here, and Mr. Mayor and your staff. So anyway, my name is Dwayne Roy. I'm with Southern Colorado Developmental Disability Services here in Trinidad. We work with individuals from birth to death that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. We provide early intervention services for children from birth to 5 years old. We work with the school district for children between the ages of 5 and 21. And then we take the individuals, or they're in our services, from 21 through end of life. We support individuals in the community with living in the community through hiring staff for to help them with living independently, group homes, host homes. We help individuals find jobs, maintain jobs. We provide adult activities, day activities, therapy services, and most of our funding is Medicaid, so we have a lot of rules and regulations. I guess what I need today from the group here is to talk to you a little bit about how the regulations affect our business. We're a small employer, and right now, just for us, with insurance costs and everything, we spend about $850 a day just for workman's comp. Our health insurance for the employees that we hire costs us about $850 a day. That's 365 days a year. And our funding comes from Medicaid. Recently, in the state budget, our programs are slated for a 1% increase in our budget. the cost of providing services, well, let me back up. That 1% increase, the ratio of our funding to our expenses, our employees, our labor costs are about 76 cents per dollar. We're going to get a 1% increase in our rates, and our the state employees are slated for like a 3%. You know, so that makes it very difficult. As Walt was saying earlier, some of our programs, you know, the minimum wage is going to affect us. Right now we're at $10.20. We're going to go to $12 an hour. So our rates are going to increase by labor rates by about 30%. You know, this year going taking us through 2020. But yet we're looking at 1%, you know, increases in funding and everything. You know, so it makes it very difficult. So we're looking at an economic crisis as we go into the future, all the way from, you know, our revenues and everything. The other thing that we're facing is regulatory. We're going through some regulatory reviews right now at the state of Colorado. Last year, Senate Bill 38 was passed that basically requires that the state take a look and audit.
Mr. Moore, could you wrap up, please?
Yes. Anyway, that they're going to audit our programs, 20 programs, which are all the programs in the state. And the state auditor's office is submitting questions, and we spend a week pulling the information together, and then they redact the request saying, the information we're requesting from you is not what we're looking for. So then we go through and they send us another set of questions. We answer those, and then they come back and say, this still isn't the information we're looking for. And this is for a statewide system, not just our program, but the regulatory control and everything. So that's what I need, or that's what our program needs. So thank you.
My name is Larry Martinez, and I think you're going to owe me time. I was asked to come here about 30 minutes ahead of time to meet with you folks. My name is Larry Martinez. I'm with the Los Animas County District Attorney's Office. I'm one of 2 investigators. And what I'll share with you this afternoon is my concern is...
Larry, I think you have a couple other people that wanted to come and stand with you while you were doing the presentation. Is that correct?
Well, I'm going to stand with them. My name was up there on a form, and so one of the concerns I have coming in from an outside agency, I was with the Aurora Police Department for 37 years, come here to work as an investigator, and one of the concerns I have, and I'll turn it over to the chief after this, is within our office we have 2 prosecutors. Two prosecutors for the district attorney's office. I find that very concerning to handle multiple cases while other entities in the nearby area have numerous resources to be able to follow up with their cases on individuals that are alleged to have committed some sort of incident that is needing attention by the courts. So that's my concern with the district attorney's office. If I said anything wrong today, because he didn't prepare me for this, you probably won't see me at work on Friday.
Good afternoon, I'm Chief Director of the Police Department. This morning we met, the panel you sit here, to discuss the opiate problem. We come up with about 10 themes. We have Ms. Wagner, City Manager, and Terry Marshall. We come up with about a dozen themes, but we have a small window to talk about, so we chose 3 that we were going to address this afternoon. The first 2 is a medical detox and Medicaid reimbursements. It's enforcement, it's education, and treatment. It's all of those, and it's a community that helps this opiate problem, not just law enforcement. So the first 2 I'm going to turn over to Dan Monahan, the chief from the Trinidad Ambulance.
Hello everybody, Happy New Year. One of the things we talked about this morning is the impact that Medicaid reimbursements have on our system. And as EMS, it's a little weird in that we don't know if we're healthcare or if we're transportation, or if we're public safety. But when I go, I think you guys, maybe one of you knows the names James Hampson, and the other one knows Curtis Swager. They work for Representative Buck and Senator Gardner. We go visit them. I've had the opportunity to meet with Representative Lewis and Senator Crowder to discuss this, and it's just strange in that the federal government sees EMS as a transportation benefit, not a medical benefit. So if we don't transport, we don't get paid. But you gotta understand, if you're in Denver Health and you transport somebody to a hospital, the crew is out of service for 20 minutes, they get the same reimbursement I do, but I have to take somebody up to Pueblo. So it's a little different here than the way things work in an urban environment. So we would ask that maybe we can take a look at some of these Medicaid reimbursement strategies that the state is using, and see if maybe, especially in the rural areas, that we can help keep some of these. We have ambulance services that have closed in this state because they haven't been able to keep up with this. We submitted $550,000 worth of Medicare reimbursement last year. We got paid about $45,000 on that $550,000 bill. So that's how much we eat of those services. Medical detox we talked about. Detox used to take up about 20% of our call volume every year here in the city. And it would be nice if we could fund something where we could have medical personnel at a detox center, so they're not constantly, it puts a strain on the hospital, it puts a strain on EMS, and we're shuttling these people back and forth, and it seems to be that they go from the jail, they go to detox, we get them, they go to the hospital, they get discharged, they get picked up again, they go back. It's just kind of a vicious circle, and I think we all know what they call when you do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result. So we'd really like to see that. A lot of it is coming from the opioid epidemic that we all talk about. And just to give you an example, our little town, since 2014, and this is only going up into the middle of 2017, we used over $8,000 of Narcan in our county. Trinidad Ambulance District spent almost $8,000 on Narcan, which is the drug that is supposed to reverse overdoses. So that's where we stand today. Hoping we can get some help with this. Hoping we can get people out of this vicious circle of doing the same thing over and over again, and get folks some treatment. Get our mental health people to a bed so they're not just sitting in an ER somewhere, and we can move them on to a place where they can actually get help rather than just sit and wait to get help.
The third thing that we addressed was high-rate addiction and enforcement, and Deputy Chief Harrison will talk to you about that.
First, I'd like to thank a lot of you that helped contribute to our K9 unit, the citizens here and a lot of the business owners here. And now our dogs are certified and can do narcotics detection. Right now we're trying to be very progressive instead of reactive, and being proactive in the community with the problems that we're having with the heroin and the meth that's going on here. So what we're doing now with our dogs is we're getting them into interdiction out on our interstate here, because this is a huge corridor. Most of the narcotics that are coming in are coming up through Juarez, right up I-25, and all the way up to I-80, and then they go east and west from there. So we continue north from Wyoming as well. We're going to try and combat that and reduce a lot of our numbers that we have going on here with the calls that we have for the narcotics. And the way we're going to do that is with our dogs, getting them out there. Again, it's kind of hard for us to do that right now with our call load and the types of calls that we have, to get our dogs out there on the street so they can be proactive instead of reactive, because they're out there helping on these other calls and not having the opportunity to be on the highway to get some of this taken care of. So we're going to try really hard this year to get some of that done. And this is, with our program with canines, it's kind of a return to you, because we do so many things with the dogs. It's not only do we go out there and answer calls, but we do a lot of different types of calls with these dogs. So we can either do types of rescues with the dogs, saving the officers' lives out there by going to calls with them where they detect the bad guys. But with the narcotics too, we get a lot of seizures off of that, so we get a return from those seizures. Just a quick example for me was when I was working up north on an interdiction. We stopped a vehicle, our dogs alerted on that vehicle. Inside that vehicle was over $100,000 in cash. That was drug money that was coming back down to Mexico. We seized that. That money came back to our department for more training and equipment so that we can continue on with that. So we will get a return on that. So we just need the help, and we appreciate all the help that everybody's given us, the businesses here, to get these dogs going. We have 3 dogs now. The county now has 1 dog that we're going to get certified as well. And we're utilizing all our resources and working with the county and doing more interdiction and having them with the dog as well. So, thank you.
One more thing I'd like to add with Los Angeles County Probation, we started a drug-free task force. We meet the 3rd Monday every month at 9:30 at the courthouse. I'd love to see some of you that are trying to address this problem as well attend our meetings, and maybe you have some suggestions. But we're doing a lot of things proactive, and I'd like to bring as many of you as we can to the table to help combat this problem. This is a community problem. So thank you for your time.
Just wanted to ask that you bear with us a little bit. We are running a little long. But as you can see, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of concerns and a lot of questions in everyone's mind today, I'm sure. What I'd like to do now is go ahead and introduce our next round of speakers. And the next speaker that I'd like to introduce, of course, is the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Ms. Crisanta Duran, please.
It is a great honor to be here in Southern Colorado with all of you. I want to especially thank Mayor Rico for all of his leadership in pulling this together. I represent a district in downtown Denver, Globeville, Elyria, Swansea, part of the Lower Highlands and Sunnyside, so some of the surrounding areas in Denver. But I have roots in Southern Colorado that go back a very long time. I have 6 generations of family in the state of Colorado. We have a ranch that is just west of here and west of Aguilar. And both of my parents grew up in Pueblo, Colorado. My grandfather worked in the steel mill his entire career until he had the opportunity to ultimately be able to retire. And so I try and come down to Southern Colorado as much as I can. Most of the time spend time with family, aunts, uncles, cousins in the Pueblo area, or to get to my family's ranch. We have oat and alfalfa crops there now, and I know that when we think about all of the different changes in Colorado that we've had, and as Colorado is known for being one of the strongest states when it comes to our economy in the nation, I know firsthand that there's still a lot of hardworking families in Colorado that are not necessarily feeling the benefits of that strength. And one of the goals for this upcoming legislative session is going to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to address the struggles and challenges of hardworking Coloradans in this state, to ensure that there is economic security, that we address affordability issues, that we do more to address the high cost of housing and the high cost of childcare, and also that we work to ensure that retirement security is a reality for more Coloradans. Somebody mentioned the issue of para, and that has been a ongoing conversation at the legislature. There's been different proposals that have come forward to change para, and I will tell you that from my perspective, I think we absolutely need to do everything we can to keep the promises that have been made to retirees. And although we need reform, we need to make sure there's a shared sacrifice and shared investment to any changes that happen. Beyond that, we're also looking to continue to figure out how do we make sure that there is economic development in different areas of the state. A couple years ago, I had the great honor of carrying the bill called Jumpstart Colorado. And what we were looking at specifically is those areas of Colorado with the highest unemployment and the lowest wages, and work to try and figure out how do we make sure that there are tax breaks to promote small businesses, and that we're doing things that can really help the economic vitality in different communities across Colorado. And that bill
has become a law and is doing a lot of good work in different parts of the state. I've also worked to pass legislation to create the creative districts. And we think about Trinidad and what an incredible community it is with the drive from Pueblo to Santa Fe. This should be a hub for tourism, for more people to come here to enjoy the arts, to be able to enjoy so much of the community that Trinidad provides. And so we want to continue to work with you in that goal and try and figure out what else we can do at the state level to be able to promote that. And I also appreciate hearing today from people talking about the opioid epidemic and substance abuse. And this year, this issue hit my family. It's a very personal issue. My cousin, who was only 3 years older than me, at the age of 40, passed away right before Thanksgiving. And he passed away because of addiction to alcohol abuse, addiction to drug abuse, including opioids. And I know firsthand how hard it is to grow up with somebody that you knew and loved. And I think about my cousin Juan. He was so smart and so thoughtful, and he just became beholden to the use of alcohol and drugs. And this upcoming legislative session, we are going to try and do more to make sure that there's significant investment in combating these abuses and this addiction and this epidemic that hurts too many Colorado families. Over the interim, there has been a group of legislators, Republican and Democrat, who have been working together to come up with a package of proposals that will come forward this legislative session to address the opioid epidemic head on. And I'm hopeful that in a time when there's so much turbulence in politics, that we will be able to continue to work together this next legislative session to be able to deliver results on that issue. And with that, I'm going into my last and final term being a legislator. I'm term limited in January of 2019, so it's going to be my last session as Speaker of the House. And it has been the great honor of my life to have been able to serve as the Speaker. I'm the first Latina in the history of Colorado to serve in that role, and the only Latina Speaker in the country. And thank you. And going into this upcoming session, we are living in a very partisan time. And what is most important to me, more than anything else, is that we continue to show that we're not like Washington, D.C. at the State House, and that we work to bring people together regardless of whether people live in a rural or urban or suburban area of the state, regardless of whether they're Republican or Democrat, regardless of age and background, that I truly believe that there's more that binds us together as part of the human experience than will ever divide us. And this upcoming legislative session, we are going to have our hands full addressing a variety of different issues. But I'll tell you, the end of the last legislative session, the governor came out and he said that was the most productive legislative session he has ever seen during the time that he has served as governor, and I couldn't agree more. And so in Colorado, we don't just talk about being productive, we don't just talk about being bipartisan, our actions have actually showed it time and time again. And this upcoming legislative session, we're going to be continue to be dedicated to that. But I look forward to continuing to work with all of you, and I really appreciate listening to some of the concerns and the challenges and the things that you think we should be focused on. I've often found that the best ideas at the state legislature aren't from just me or Senator Crowder or Representative Lewis getting together and just coming up with our own ideas. It's really listening in meetings like this and listening to the community to figure out which direction we need to go. So again, many thanks for being here, and I look forward to continue to work with you on this journey.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank you for putting this together today. You know, I know with our guys in blue here, I think we need to acknowledge what has happened in the state of Colorado recently up north with the apparent ambush of a man in blue, one of our first offenders, and I think that we ought to acknowledge our people in blue and out of total respect. What binds us together as a society and a community is our rule of law, and it must be adhered to. But you know, we should take a step back once in a while and you know, tone down what we consider to be partisan politics, which in large part creates this. There could be a group that is anti-establishment, whatever, but we need to make sure that we adhere to the what binds us together as a community and a society. But I, for one, really do respect for what they do, and I know that you know, your DA stood up here and talked about money, and a lot of the problems we have is about money. You know, a lot of the problems we can address, we can attempt to somewhat put a Band-Aid on, but a lot of this has to come right from the community itself. You know, the state and federal government can only do so much, and it's a function. We're relying on our government. I know the hospital talked about the Affordable Care Act. The reality is, you know, I was the only Republican that did vote for Medicaid expansion, which I have to realize I represent 16 counties, and 15 of those counties are below federal poverty level. And being a fifth generation out of Southern Colorado was a no-brainer for me. It was a situation where, you know, I do represent 9 hospitals in my district, and I will not stand by and let a closure happen, because it's something that we all rely on as our hospitals. You know, the college does a great job, both Trinidad State as well as Adams State. You know, I think by holding tuition down where we can and make it more affordable for the people in which we service is a great attribute to the college. I think that the capital development money you seek should have been in place at this time. I'm not sure where you're at on it, but normally anytime a capital development situation comes out in the district, I do send letters of support in. You know, there's I will address the para issue slightly. I know that there's roughly 3 different bills coming forward in the legislation on para, and politics is about compromise. You know, everybody needs to realize that we do very much value our state employees, as well as we also value our state taxpayers. So the situation is right now, para is not in jeopardy of losing their benefits. Right now they're sitting on $44 billion. So it's just a question of how we look at this in the future funding. So, you know, people should not be alarmed at losing their benefits on para, because I think we can work through this. And it's not a new issue. It's something that we will approach, both the Democrats and the Republicans, in a very open manner. But yet, and this issue, anytime you get something this large with para funding, it's going to come back again, because the economics of the country change. So I look forward to working with that. I think that we can come out with a very, you know, a good compromise. I don't know that everybody will be happy with it, but I think it's what we all perceive to be in the best interest of the state. You know, I was surprised at the Narcan. I was reported here today that Narcan was being sold. That's the first time I've heard of that. You know, the Narcan, which actually the Attorney General first came out with that program, I thought was a great benefit to all of Colorado, to the reversal of overdose. So I am surprised to hear that. You know, we will be checking on to that. You know, a lot of this, I understand the wage increase has been a factor, but you have to realize that people in the state of Colorado voted for this. I did oppose this when it came out, but our job as legislators, once this is passed by the people, our job is to uphold that Constitution. You know, and what we could do is possibly come out with some type of relief in some package form. I don't know, but you know, and we all are aware. Even the people in the metro area are aware of the differences between rural Colorado versus metro, and it's something we don't consider it a war up there. It's just a different way of life that we are used to, opposed to what they're used to, and we tend to work through it. You know, mental health is a big issue right now, and it's a tough issue. You know, we don't have the resources in rural Colorado they have in the metro areas, but we're working toward that in a more positive fashion. You know, Fort Lyons is a great example of what we can do. In fact, I do promote the Fort Lyons model throughout the state. You know, how we can take our homeless and people addicted and have a very positive outcome. But the reality is, a lot of the people have to want to improve themselves on this. You know, we still have constitutional issues that we cannot forcibly treat people. They have to want this. So it's not, and you know, it's not complicated at all. But you know, I think a large issue, you know, which is important that I will take away from this group today, is we can come together and come up with ideas on how to benefit communities. You know, I think that, you know, the police chief talked about EMS transporting and whatnot. The reality is, you know, the police have a lobbyist team that they can actually develop what you perceive to be the best interest of what you're talking about. Instead of just talking to us individually, it's better to have a collective group talk to us and have a plan of how to fix what the problem is. And it can be done collectively. But you know, we will. Our session starts January 10th, and I'm in basically my second final term as your state senator. And you know, it's been quite an honor to serve Southern Colorado, being a fifth generation from Lower Arkansas Valley and this region. So I want you to realize that we will continue to fight for you and to fight for what your issues are. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time, and it's really a pleasure being here today.
Hi, I'm Kimmy Lewis. I'm your House District 64 representative, and I wanted to thank the fellows in blue at the back of the room, but the senator beat me to it. I didn't know whether it was because we all needed to stand up and stretch or whether it was because we were so thankful. We are very thankful. I got to meet Mr. Moynihan and talk about his issues here in the county. As you know, I am from this part of the county. I support Trinidad State Junior College. Go Trojans. I was a basketball player in 76 and 77. I was the girl that was knocking everybody down in the paint. So, two committees I sit on in the House, Agriculture and Public Health. And I wanted to mention a little bit about these committees. If you've ever come to the Capitol, and I encourage you to do so, I want you to take a card from me today if you so choose, and come and visit us. I've got to meet Debbie Wagner. I've got to see the mayor at the Capitol, along with several of you from the council, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your time and your trip to Denver, because I too am there. But I want to talk a little bit about the committees. When we're in committee, especially public health, agriculture, there's a lot about that I already know because I've grown up in agriculture, and I want to mention agriculture right now. Agriculture is one of the things that we haven't mentioned yet today. Agriculture is a huge part of this county. It's a huge part of your tax base, and it's a huge part of what built this town and what helped keep Los Animas County strong, and it still continues today. But I want to talk a little bit about the committees, and I think this is something maybe you don't know. When we're sitting in committee, and we might be there a very long time, it gives us time to look up things on our computer or talk to the next person by texting, but mainly I look up things on the computer. And when the opioid epidemic came up, I want you to know that even though last year there was money appropriated for Pueblo County and other parts of the state on opioids, scared me to death, that why weren't we asking for some of that? Why weren't we doing something about opioids here in this county? When I was at Fort Lyon with the senator doing a tour, we've been down there a couple times since I've been in office. There was a gentleman there from Trinidad. He was about my age. And I said, oh, you grew up in Trinidad. How neat. That's my county seat. I went there all these years for the fair and went to college there. My kids all went there for the fair. And I mean, Trinidad's like hometown. And he says, oh, I hope I never go back. And that hurt my heart because of the drugs here. He didn't want to come back. He wanted to stay down in the Fort Lyon area or another part of Colorado. And that hurts. So I thought we have to do something. But anyway, when we're in committee, we have a lot of time on our hands. We're sitting there very long time. Sometimes it's to midnight, hearing different bills and hearing different issues. But I know that the drug issue here is a concern. The death issue from the opioids is a concern. So we need to be doing something about that. Last year, Senate Bill 267, I was glad to help vote for that as well, for our rural hospitals. I know they told us all, hey, they're not going to shut down any rural hospitals. I wasn't going to let my vote be the one that did it, because I was going to stand up for rural hospitals, and I voted for 267. Senate Bill 207 concerns me a little bit. It's the one where you have to have rooms available in your hospital for those that are having mental problems or sight problems, and there are rural hospitals in my district that don't have those facilities in their ER. So that one I'm concerned about, and I need to follow up some more with your hospital on that. 60 billion goes into agriculture. Agriculture kicks in 60 billion in this state every year, so don't forget about the farmers and ranchers, and I appreciate our speaker mentioning about agriculture here in western Los Animas County. And we got to hear about drilling here in western Los Animas County. Let's talk about drilling in eastern Los Animas County. Let's talk about putting some money into the pockets of the mineral owners in eastern Los Animas County. But the main thing I want you to know is I'm up there reminding people how big this county is, because I know. I live 100 miles east of here. I don't call the guys in blue too much. I had a neighbor that did the other night, but when she called 911 about a fire that she thought she had, she actually got Bent County. It cracked me up. She lives in Los Angeles County, but she got Bent County. But anyway, they only had 50 miles to drive, so it saved that 120-mile trek for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to come out there. 681 bills were presented over our desk last year, and it's a lot. And it gets kind of crazy towards the end of the session. So if you think about coming up, come see me at the beginning of the session. I'll have a little more time because it is just kind of crazy. But I'm glad to serve this district, even though it's a large one. I can't even imagine being as large as Senator Crowder's. I put about 70,000 on my vehicle since April of last year, just in going out and being amongst the people that I represent, and that's what I want to do. And thank you so much. I'm glad to have this. Thank you for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation being here today. I've learned a lot, and a lot is similar to what other counties are experiencing. So one of the things I'd like to remind you of is to work together, come up with a strategic plan between the city, the county, and the community as to what your priorities are in this county, and work toward those priorities so that you're available for, you can get grants in, federal grants, state grants, so forth, to help with these problems. And reach out to the other counties that are having similar problems, very similar problems, affordable housing, opioid, those things, and work together to come up with a solution as a region. I'd like to also tell you that, remind you that I'm Kathy Garcia. I'm the Southern Colorado Regional Director for U.S. Senator Cory Gardner's office. Population is decreasing in rural Colorado, so we need to work together to come up with solutions to bringing people back, bringing our kids back to the community and starting new businesses, economic development, and so forth. One of the things, well, let me cover just briefly what Congress expects to do. once they start today and tomorrow. They're looking at welfare reform, an infrastructure bill, which will include water projects. That's something the senator was really pushing for, because we need to make sure we have enough water in the U.S., especially Colorado, since we export a lot of water. And immigration reform. DACA is on the plate, but the president is tying in the wall. We'll have DACA if you build the wall. Well, we could use that money for the wall in other issues like roads and bridges and so forth. That's what the senator feels that we should do with the wall money. The senator, along with Senator Bennett, have introduced legislation to fund CHIP. You're aware of that, CHIP for the children. And that was not completed before they left for the holidays, but it was extended to the 1st of March. So they're going to work on getting CHIP funded for at least 5 more years, get that extended. The senator has been working also with economic development issues, and he's working closely with Senator Bennett on public land issues. The senator has also introduced earlier last year a marijuana banking bill so that we can legalize putting money into the bank. And one of the concerns the senator has is affordable housing and all the rules and regulations HUD has. Somebody mentioned HUD. Right there, yes, a lot of rules and regulations. We're having problems trying to get migrant workers into migrant housing because of the rules and regulations. And so something that needs to be done. So the senator's looking at that very closely. And now that I've heard about the EMS, I will follow up with Curtis Swager, who is our legislative director, on where that status is so we can follow up on that and get that taken care of. It doesn't seem right if you're out there working as an EMS and you get paid pennies on the dollar because you're considered transportation. That just does not seem right. But the senator is willing and interested in hearing from you. Just give me a call. I do have some cards on the table. I'd be more than happy to come down and talk to you about issues that you would like the senator to see and follow up with. Thank you very much.
My goodness, thank you for putting this together. This is such a great forum, and I'll just remind you as well, I'm Andy Hall from Congressman Ken Buck's office, and I must admit that I'm not usually down in this area. I'm covering this for our Southeast rep, Erica Chavez. If you haven't gotten a chance to meet with her yet, she is great and wants to have conversations with really every single one of you in this room. So I'd be more than happy to connect the two of you. I live up in Longmont, but grew up down in Santa Fe, so I was always, I drive back and forth a lot, and it's like, as soon as you get out of the metro, you make it to Trinidad, you can just take a deep breath. Like, Trinidad is a very safe feeling place. You're out of the craziness of the Denver metro area. And we talked a lot about today some of the issues going on down here, but I really think it's important to highlight some of the great things that are going on. I have to tell you, I was at a meeting with a lot of aerospace companies a couple weeks ago at the Nature and Science Museum in Denver. And lo and behold, one of the businesses there was a manufacturing company here in Trinidad that is making parts for the Orion spacecraft. Who would have thought? So lots of really neat things going on down here, and I just want to echo so much that's already been said. There's a lot of action that I can feel needs to happen from the people that are leading in this community. You guys are ready for that action. And keep us involved with that. There's a lot. It's not just one thing is a city level or one thing is a county level. They're all very related. So keep us involved, the senator's office as well. Keep us involved with that. Congressman Buck is always so concerned about how federal regulations are taking a toll, for better or for worse, on these communities. And they're not going to know about them in Washington, D.C. unless you guys let us know. So keep us in the loop with all of that. And just again, like it's been said, it really takes this whole community, and all of us at the different levels of government and community leaders. So I'm excited to hear what comes forward as far as economic development, working on our safety with the incredible law enforcement. There's good things that are going to be happening, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matt Loudon. I'm a Los Angeles County Commissioner, and boy, I hate to be at the end because we've heard such dynamic speakers that I hate to be the last one, because mine will be much more mundane than the rest. So I want to thank everybody for coming. This was great. I think this was a great forum, and hopefully we can grow this to something that where we're really making some progress. And I think a lot of the ideas that we've heard here today are very pertinent to what we need to get done, but some of the things that I want to talk about to the people in our legislature are probably a little mundane to a lot of people, and hopefully they won't be to you. But one of the things that I always look at whenever anything happens is how does it affect the county with their money, what bills, what does that do? How does it affect the school districts, and how does it affect the special districts? And one of the things that we're seeing is that State Land Board is coming in and buying up large tracts of land in this county. Probably right now they own 50 to 75,000 acres in this county. Well, what that immediately does is takes it off of the tax rolls. And I know that the State Land Board will come back and say, well, yeah, it comes back to your schools. But when you take 50,000 acres out of a school district, it impacts them immediately. And they are having to make that money up somewhere. So I really think that we need to take a look at that, and maybe they just need to keep their two school districts, or their two school sections, and work off of that. Or if they do come in and buy a large ranch, there needs to be, you sell off those other school districts so that we'll have no net loss, because I saw this happen. I was on the school board at Branson, and a 50,000 acre ranch went out of our district. It impacted us pretty hard the first year. And I know that the state says, oh, well, they'll backfill. The state never backfills 100%. I'm sorry, but you don't do it. So what we lose, we lose more. So I think that needs to be something that needs to be looked at. Boy, there's so many things here, but that really affects the special districts and the school districts, and it affects the county too. And another thing that we've got to look at, and I mean this is going to be a controversial thing, is conservation easements that are happening in eastern Colorado. And it's very hard for me, because that's a private property right. So it's hard for me to distinguish, okay, is this all right? But now those easements are starting to affect my private property right. We had, in eastern Los Angeles County, we have a lot of transmission line wind energy things coming in right now. There was a company that was several people were working with, and they finally said, because of the conservation easements, we're bowing out of this, because we cannot get across the conservation easement. So what they're having to do with these transmission lines is zigzag them across private land so that they can get these ends. And what I see this happening in this county, and even eastern Los Angeles County, and I'm not speaking mostly for Los Angeles County, I'm speaking of eastern Colorado, because we're all in the same little boat, is that you're stifling economic development possibilities out there. So, but it's a tough one, and I don't know whether you sunset those, whether there needs to be a public hearing whenever there's a conservation easement going in your county to see how it's going to affect, how it ties up with the others. I think there needs to be a lot more dialogue, and the people of the state of Colorado are paying a lot of money for these easements because they're getting a tax break. These people are getting the tax breaks, and we're the ones that are having to backfill that money. So I think that's something that we really need to take a look at. Another thing that is really vital to Eastern Colorado is high-speed internet. If we can get high-speed internet in Colorado, that is an economic development grower for us. I live about a half a mile from the New Mexico border, and it really irks me to see everybody over there, all of my neighbors over there, have fiber optic running directly to their house. Everybody has fiber optic to their house in northern New Mexico. And we would just love to be able to load down something and be able to see something 10 minutes after we start loading it down. So, and there's a lot of, I had a gentleman that is a friend of my son's that is a computer developer, and he wants to live in a rural place, but he said, I can't live down there in Trinidad or anywhere there because I have to have high-speed internet. And so I think that's something that we really need to look at. And I know that last mile is a tough one. It's really, really tough. First mile is easy, second mile is all right, but that third mile is a tough one. So, you know, we need to collaborate on that, how we can make that work. I want to get one other thing I want to touch on is, well, there's several, but the DHS problem that we have, and what we have is a growth industry, and just like any business that's growing, you know, your payables are ahead of your receivables, and that's exactly where we're at now with this. Is that we're having to pay out more, and we're not getting the money back in time. I understand that, yeah, we maybe haven't funded like we should have to DHS, but we have to keep up, and it's hard for us to keep up when we're in a stagnant economy. It's hard for us to keep up with that growth, and so somehow or another we have got to get our hands around this for these counties in eastern Colorado so that we can provide those services for those people. I mean, I hate to say it, but if the homeless people all left, it wouldn't bother me. It's creating problems for all of us in a lot of different ways, so I think that's something that we really need to look at. If now, with the big one in the room, and you people don't have anything to do about this, but the Gallagher Amendment
I have been working on that.
well, that's good, because it's fixing to hit us pretty hard in the back end.
The Gallagher Amendment, in my opinion, is the biggest problem in which we face. But the reality is, and there is a reality, to change the Gallagher will take a statewide vote. Now, how many in here or anywhere in the state of Colorado is going to vote for their taxes to go up? That's where basically we're at in the Gallagher.
Well, the people in Los Animas County this year voted for their taxes to go up, so thank you all.
That was just to Bruce, right?
Yeah, for the tax increase.
But the Gallagher is a larger issue. If we don't face this problem in the near future, it's just going to get worse and worse. And this is something that I've been promoting to at least have the conversation on Gallagher. Because, you know, it's an unfair situation, primarily for our K-12 education.
Well, just
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine, because
that's not the big elephant in the room, but it is one that a lot of us are talking about.
Well, by 2019, according to the figures that we have, the school districts in Los Animas County will lose $233,000 because of the Gallagher Amendment. And I'm all for everybody having lower taxes, I understand that, but there is a cost. Every time we save some money somewhere, it's a cost, and that's the one thing that I really would like for you people to understand, is that everything you do in Denver, just take one 30-second thought and think, how is that affecting eastern Los Animas County by what we've done here, or eastern Colorado by what we've done here? Because, and I realize that Gallagher was voter initiative, but that was 35 years ago. Things change, and that's the thing that we have to be able to pivot on, is that when things change, and we know they're gonna change, we have to figure out what are gonna be the solutions. And the thing that worries me right now is with the Gallagher Amendment, if we have a downturn in this whole state, or if we have a downturn in eastern Colorado, it's really gonna hurt. It's gonna be exacerbated because we cannot get that money back. We can't go up on those housing.
Well, I will tell you that, make no mistake, that we do consider what the ramifications of what is being passed. So make no mistake that we're not aware of it. The reality is we don't have the votes to change it. And, you know, what we do is we work on state policy. But, you know, but in the same token, we've been able to, as far as wind and alternative energy, we're working very hard to get what you just addressed was the lines to export. Now I realize the conservation easement is an issue, but we also have water that, you know, once a conservation easement is done, it protects that water. Water is a big issue with the growth that we're seeing. So I would not look for a change in the conservation easement, but what I would look for is a change to make possibly a right-of-way for an export line to go over a conservation easement. And I'm not sure that doesn't happen now.
But, and that's great, except if I don't take a conservation easement, and I have signed a contract, if I do have one, saying that none of these towers can go up, but then all of a sudden I can, so I get to wait on both ends, so we gotta watch that too.
Well, I know right now, and I'm not trying to get into a debate here, but right now, Baca County as well as Kiowa, as well as Los Animas County, has the best wind in the state. Now I'm looking at that as economic development for the region.
And I am too.
So what we're doing is we're moving forward in that direction. You know, so I'm not sure that I understand that the conservation easements would be something that hinders that. But one other item I might add, it's been reported that 77% of the state has high-speed internet. Next year at this time, it's supposed to be developed to 85%. So we are moving very fast forward into that too.
And that's good.
I apologize for.
No. This is good. This is how people learn.
I want to make one comment about conservation easements. There are 5,400 conservation easements in the state of Colorado. There are more in southeast Colorado than anywhere else in the state. When you leave here and you go east, what do you see? Open space. Those of us that live around the Department of Defense, which is called Pinyon Canyon Maneuver Site, we have been pushed into conservation easements, and those of us that have withheld from doing that, we have low flight zone over us, so we can't have the wind towers if we wanted them. Our rights are trampled on by all the people that have conservation easements. So I will be carrying some bills about conservation easements, and we hope to make some changes here in the state of Colorado for those that do want to protect their private property rights and get some wind tower or solar power. Here in eastern Colorado, eastern Los Animas County, we have every right. It's unbelievable the amount of wind and the type of wind that's in Prowers and Baca County and eastern Los Animas County is unreal. It's the last forefront. We have till 2020 to get these towers built, and we're having a heck of a time getting transmission lines because we have Department of Defense, we have the State Land Board, we have all these conservation easements. And no, sir, it cannot be two-way split. They're in perpetuity. IRS tells them they have to be that way. But here in the state of Colorado, there is going to have to be some kind of reckoning, because at 1 out of every 5 to 6 conservation easements end up in default. You have people right here in Los Animas County that have had their conservation easements pulled, and they're going through hell, and we need to help them. So yes, it is your private property rights, but where are the rest of the people's private property rights? So the very first bill I'll be carrying on conservation easements will be just to get a full accounting of what we have per county. I want to know which land trusts have gone into default. I want to know if they're orphaned land trusts, if they're following their protocol. I want to know how many acres are being preserved and what for. And is it really conservation? Land use is a huge thing in Colorado, and as Commissioner Loudon has said, it has really impacted our area. We cannot continue to allow these groups to come in and get huge tracts of land. It will end up all being in a national park. And the national parks aren't bad, but how much How much land are we gonna stand to lose here in Los Animas County and Baca County? How much land are we gonna lose in the whole southeast Colorado, my district? The minerals are here, ladies and gentlemen. All we gotta do is drill them. Let's get after some private property rights and stand up for what we believe in. Thank you.
Wow.
The speaker here has got a time frame.
Okay, I'm done. I think after that, I think everybody, so, you know, you heard some very dynamic speakers, but I'm the one that got everybody woke up again.
You definitely woke me up, but I did want to mention one other thing that you raised as it relates to broadband and access to internet in this upcoming legislative session. There's been a lot of work to try and make sure we go that third mile so that more communities have access to broadband. I will tell you that the conversations have been going very, very well, better than they have in previous years, with Republicans and Democrats working together to try and come up with a statewide solution. So we're going to continue to work through this upcoming legislative session, but the future is looking bright as it relates to that issue. Thank you.
Greg, do you want to give us your 5 minutes, or do you want to pass?
I think I'll pass just because you're out of time.
Okay. Just going to speak, on behalf of the city of Trinidad. As mayor, one of the things that is really concerning to me is everything that goes on. As mayor, I have to be aware of everything that affects Trinidad, whether it's local here, state issues, national issues that are coming forth that are going to have a direct effect on Trinidad and pretty much Los Animas County area. Like Trinidad, like many communities, we all have challenges, the safety of our citizens, an aging infrastructure, transportation needs, health issues, physical, behavioral, economic needs, jobs, education, and on and on and on and on. Of concern to me at this point is the tax reform that was initiated by the federal government. We don't really know what's going to come of that yet. There's still some word out there as to this and that, but we don't know the realities of it. So I'm currently waiting for the Colorado Municipal League to release their views on tax reform. Funding for our 50 to 100-year-old infrastructure is a great concern. My thought is, can we possibly maybe get DOLA to reduce the 50% match to maybe 35 to 40%? It will sure help us quite a bit. Opioids has been talked about, and I just wanted to say, I think for the city of Trinidad, I can speak for the city of Trinidad, and we are here to participate. So please include us. We need to help our local labor pool. It needs a lot of training, so we need to work on that quite a bit. Like every other community anymore, it seems like we have a housing shortage. Recently, we only had 3 rentals in the city of Trinidad. We have people who want to move here, so we need to be able to create some more rentals. In the next 18 months, we will have the Space to Create program that is going to be starting up. We have groundbreaking probably sometime in May, and I wanted to thank the speaker for really helping and promoting that, and probably Mr. Crowder, and I'm not sure if Ms. Kimmy Lewis also spoke up for us as well, so thank you for helping us in that regard. It's something that's come to fruition for the city of Trinidad. Education is a great concern to me. The education system needs updating. I believe that there are students out there who want to have a 4-year education system or a 5-year education, 6 years. That's okay. But we need to concentrate on vocations. We will always need vocations in our school systems to be able, so these students can find decent jobs when they leave high school or have 1 or 2 years in college. So that's something that I really believe that hopefully getting money into the colleges, into the high school level, to promote vocations. The energy impact funds is another issue that I think is a concern to us. We lose a lot of money. It seems like it gets reduced every year. We've had, Jumpstart is here in Trinidad, but we still have some issues. We've not been able to attract anybody to come here in Trinidad, and I've been talking to Ms. Marshall about that, as to how we can possibly work on that here in the near future. As I mentioned, these issues are not only on my mind, but all the mayors across the state of Colorado. I know solving all of these issues, they're monumental, but our approach to these issues must be consistent with the resolve not to get frustrated and throw our hands up in despair. On the flip side, Trinidad has seen an upswing in many areas. The housing market, commercial real estate areas, they're strong. Existing homes are being purchased and renovated. Commercial permits that are an all-time high. Thanks to Mr. Jason Mito and his group, he has done quite a bit in that area. And people are wanting to move here for quality of life. Like I said, the Space Grade project is something that's coming in here in late May. City Council is making investments in our infrastructure, recreational activities, hiking and biking trails. A private entity this summer wants to establish kayaking and tubing on the river in the summertime. Trinidad is at a tipping point. Let's work together to begin to address our concerns and to continue the positive momentum. In closing, I wanted to thank our panel for being here with us today. I think this has been an experience for everyone. This is something that I've never seen here in Trinidad. I don't know if it's ever happened. Particularly to Speaker Duran, Senator Crowder, State Legislator Kimmy Lewis, and City Council representatives, county representatives, and all of the industry leaders that are here today. Thank you for being here. I think we've all learned a lot. We've almost kind of established, I think, a mandate of what we need to do to try to continue to move this community forward. If we're going to make our community safer, invigorating, and people wanting to move here, wanting to stay here when they come and get off the highway, I think we have a mandate to try to work on this together. So if we have a consensus of all of the information that you have in front of you, we plan to have another roundtable sometime in late July. This will be after the legislatures round up their year. So at this time, what I want to do is recently the city of Trinidad updated their logo to a new pin. And if you look around, the people and our staff members, and probably, I'm not sure if any of our council people are wearing a pin. I have one, by the way. Pat has one. And I'd like to present each one of these pins to some of our panel members. So starting with Speaker Duran, would you please come forward? Thank you for your participation. Very proud of you. She and I have had discussions about her family, by the way, because I know her family going way back.
He told me some stories I never knew.
Senator Crowder. Thank you. Ms. Lewis.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia. Thank you. Last one is here. Last of all, let's give everyone a round of applause for your participation. And just a final note that I decided to come up with this here is I plan to give a state of the city on February the 12th. This is something I think that I'm not sure if it's ever been done for our community, and I think it's time. It's an issue of transparency. People want to know what we're doing, what we've done, what we will be doing in the near future. So that's something that I will do. I will be presenting. Time and place will be advertise your coming in the next couple of weeks probably. Thanks again for being here. Thanks again to our panel. Thanks again.